Hello everyone, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you for coming to my channel and supporting me in this fabulous hobby. So, this is my 20-gallon heavily planted Awase Cinescaper. Beautiful aquarium kit. I set this up about 2 years ago now. It's essentially the same aquascape, although it has evolved considerably. I'm not one of those guys who, one of those fish keepers, I should say, who set up tanks for 6, 7, 8 months, make a bunch of videos, and then tear it down and do it all over again. I want to stick with the same system, even if I get into a rut or the tank feels super familiar to me and I'm anxious to change things up. I still resist all those flawed human temptations to fix, manage, and control and change and try to go with the flow of nature. Now obviously, given my default slogan for this channel is always keep your hands in the tank, I'm not one to just sit back and totally let nature take its course. I do always have my hands in the tank, and I do help further the evolution of all my aquariums, and this one is no exception. I say all that because A, it's what comes to mind when I look at this aquarium, which I feel is doing pretty terrific at this juncture. It had a lot of wood and rock in the center, as many aquascapes do, and over the course of the last 2 years I've removed piece by piece, not all at once, to make room for more plants. And I don't know that there's much of any hardscape left. I know there is some dragonstone. Maybe we'll look at it if I try a different camera shot. So it's not a true Wallstead aquarium, but I am so inspired by the Wallstead aquarium, the dirted aquariums that are super heavily planted with all kinds of plants, exotic, high-tech, common, unexpected. I'm just a big fan of all of them. The way corals became as important to me, if not more so than fish when I had a saltwater tank set up, plants have become as important to me as fish in my fish room now, which is all freshwater aquariums. So with the room I was able to create by moving out some rock and wood, I was able to take advantage of that real estate and apply these red stem plants you see in the background, and green ones, but I've always had the pogo stem and octopus in the far left corner. A new one was the Ludwigia Super Red Mini, and there you see it there. And then there's a little bit of Rotala Wallachia or Wallachia, a very fine and feathery plant, which I have half a mind to just pull out and let the Ludwigia repens and the Ludwigia Super Red basically take over that little space. But every time I go to do that, I see those wonderful red tops there, and I resist the temptation to do that. In the far right hand corner is the fastest growing stem plant in the hobby, Lemonfilia sessiflora. There used to be a ton of that in this aquarium, and I've thinned it to occupy the far right hand corner with green, the way the pogo stem and octopus occupies the far left hand corner with green. This, my favorite thing right now in this aquarium, is Hygrophila arugia, which responds to CO2 and high light and creates this wonderful pink and purple low growing bushy stem plant. I am so pleased with the way this has turned out. Look at that plant, and it's slow growing, it stays like that. Super cool, and it's a transition plant to the carpet here, which is comprised of dwarf hairgrass, Helenthium tanum, if I'm saying that right, Helenthium, Sagittaria, some mosses. I just mow this like a lawn. I used to say it was like the AstroTurf or the putting greens on a golf course, but it's really more like that first rough before you get to the true rough on a golf course. It's a little bit bushier, but yet very true. Its integrity across the bottom of the aquarium is very true. You see the rootstock going into the stratified layers of substrate, which is aqua soil, gravel, sand. In the back is some lava rock underneath all that as well. I tend to use aqua soils as the primary nutrient provider. I don't have any dirted tanks, but aqua soil is essentially the same thing. More fortified, a little bit easier to work with, in my opinion, and for my purposes. That's what I like to do. Plus with aqua soil, you technically don't need to cap it if you don't want to. So epiphytes, that's the center, the mid portion, forms a slight crescent in front of the carpet there, or behind the carpet. You saw the Hygrophila arugia, but now you see Anubias mini, Nana, Barteria, other Anubias, Anubii, I think is the plural. And they're all betwixt and between that mid-ground portion. But I also have a lot of Bucephalandra, which is finally coming into its own. I also put some more of that Hygrophila chai. Those are small stems there. They're a bit more compromised for space because of the Blixa japonica, which I planted right here from one of my other tanks. I have a lot of luck with this plant, not everybody does. But I might pull some more out so that I can get an equal amount of this glorious plant on this side of the aquarium. But having too much Blixa japonica is a high-class problem. And this Bloody Mary Neocaridina doesn't seem to mind it either. So the Bucephalandra, I don't know the exact types, but look at these deeply purple ones. How cool is that? Those didn't show like that color and that growth for a year. They were just lost along the mid-ground, kind of green and random. And then they just started to become their best self over time with my interventions and also with my patience. In other words, while I was doing a lot of things in the tank, I wasn't pulling those plants out. I may have adjusted them a little bit. I tend to put a tiny piece of rock, really thumb-sized piece of rock, and attach individual Bucephalandra plants to it, and then place them with my, finger and thumb, literally where I want them to be, and then leave them. So if I were to pull up that Bucephalandra, there'd be a little piece of dragonstone where the original anchor was. By now, though, the rootstock has undoubtedly reached substrate and other plant matter and wrapped itself and taken care of itself. But in the beginning, that's a great way to just deal with Bucephalandra or smaller Anubias plants. So there's wonderful Cryptocorn Balancea, the big willowy one with the rippled leaves. So pretty, so colorful, obviously responding to highlight in a good way. There's a nice example of the leaf. Now, it's possible that's another form of Cryptocorn, not Balancea, but that's how I purchased it a long time ago. but I have seen other crypts like it at my LFS that go by a different name, and the fish keeper said they're often confused, the 2 or 3 plants, so it is possible. This is a much more common cryptocorn, probably a Wendetti, but maybe not, and it's showing that luscious deep red color and brown, and it's rippled, it's dappled. The CO2 in the highlight, which is a Chihiro's RGB Slim, probably the greatest light money can buy, and there's way more expensive ones, both from Chihiro's and other brands, but while that one isn't cheap, I love the results. I mean, look at that. Even in my just iPhone camera with no fancy filter, no tripods, not much skill as a filmmaker, you're seeing incredible color, texture, and health. I do have a little bit of a deficiency that's affecting some of the Anubias leaves. You see that yellowing and the necrotic leaves. I've cut some of the more egregious ones out. It could be a potassium deficiency, which I can address with Seachem potassium. I did some research, and with a heavily planted tank, that is one of the first nutrients that can become depleted. And so I'm curious if adding Seachem potassium, I feed with an all-in-one once a week. Not a big FERT guy. I do believe in CO2 and excellent light and good substrate, though. Those are my 3 ways I get this kind of result. And the fertilization, I almost do it as not an afterthought, but because I feel guilty if I don't. But it is possible that those are from a potassium deficiency. It's only affecting the Anubias for whatever reason. I have to, instead of trimming the Ludwigia to the right and left, folks, I just pull out the plants in their entirety about once a month, and then cut about 6 inches of the best growth from the top, throw the rest out, and replant the stems. It's really only 6 to 8 stems on each side. I don't like when stem plants start to shoot double and quadruple every time you make a cut. You know, in bigger tanks with an even more skilled fish keeper, you can make that system work for you, but for me, that's where I do have to make an intervention, and I choose what some might call a more challenging path. But for me, pulling the plants out of aqua soil, because it's not dirt, doesn't really dirty up the tank that much, and I can get and control the plant growth in a way that appeals to me. So the fish, finally, over 10 minutes in, green neon tetras, you see a whole bunch of them in the back there, the shimmering blue and red. I got brass or gold tetras in the foreground in front of them. I'm very happy those 2 species to be together, and they're often occupying the same space, which is to say, reclusive by nature. Both of those fish tend to prefer being in the plants, no matter how they've been situated over the last 2 years, except during feeding times or nocturnal journeys, or just abrupt and delightful schools across the front of the tank. They tend to aggregate in the stems back there. There is a beautiful longfin albino Coreodora, and I have 5 that I got a 1.5 years ago. But because I couldn't get any spawn at the Greenwater Aquarium swap, I found another bag of juveniles of the same species, and there's one there. And I had to buy it because I wanted a couple more for this tank. So I bought a bag of 6 for only $20. That fish is going to turn into this showstopper at about $4 a pop. So while I never found any eggs from the group of 5, in a way, buying 5 juveniles, or 6 juveniles, and I put the other 3 in a different tank. There's 2 of them right there. Same beautiful fish, just half the size. So that was a fun new addition. Perhaps I should have started this video with that, and maybe it'll be the title card, I don't know, because it is the newest thing. I was at the swap last weekend, or I mean, just the last time they had the swap. This is a very current video, by the way. And I saw the bag. It might have been the very dealer very breeder where I bought these. I don't remember, but I had to get them. Here's a couple jumbo Amano shrimp working in that carpet. I have Amano shrimp in all my aquariums. Not pretty, but an indispensable part of your cleanup crew. I would consider them autosinkless, and there's one there, an auto cat. Look at that fat tummy, how cute, how healthy. That's how you determine whether your autos are doing well. They've got a nice belly. That Amano shrimp, and although they don't eat detritus, Coreodoras are 3 fish that I think are indispensable in terms of maintaining the biological health of your aquarium. I'm okay with snails. I have all kinds of snails, and they can do a terrific job. So neorite snails for algae. I like mystery snails, although I don't get a long life from them because the high acidity in my aquariums eventually degrades their shells. And while they don't live long anyway, I tend to get only about 6 to 8 months from any given mystery snail before I just find its empty shell. And the shell has been degraded by the acidity in the water, and that's how I know that that is my culprit. But while they're alive, they do a great job. So I definitely like snails. The only snail I'm not a fan of are Malaysian trumpet snails, simply because when they do get in big numbers, I find the way they congregate to be unsettling. I can't explain it any other way. Sort of like discovering a bunch of insects in your, sock drawer or something. They're just kind of gnarly. I don't know why, because I love insects and I love this hobby and I love all creatures. But Malaysian trumpet snails, for whatever reason, not on my heart list. Brass tetra, very underrated. Used to be more popular, I think, in the 90s or something, but don't sleep on these fish. They're inexpensive and pretty hardy, and they're truly metallic. And if they're very, very gold, that means there's a good chance you have a wild caught variety, because that gold is actually a function of a bacteria that they create, a parasitical bacteria, I think, that the fish itself creates to attack a fungus that will attack it in the wild. Now, I could be misstating fungus for bacteria, but the gold is created by the fish to fight, to help it protect itself. And in the tank bred versions, they don't really need to protect themselves from that in your aquarium, so you get a more brass color, which is maybe not as intense as the gold. I find it's a combination of both, and good lighting really helps. I love that fish. I love that fish. Don't sleep on the gold or brass tetra. It's never on anybody's gotta have list, but it was on mine, and I have them. There's a group of about 8 or 9 in here with those green neon tetras. Now they're starting to show themselves a little bit better. The perfect neon tetra, except for its tendency to be reclusive, which honestly, for me, is kind of a problem. I'd love more fish out in the front there, It's so ironic that the Coreodoras are the most boisterous and forward of all my fish. See, when everyone considers them to be guilty of being shy and reclusive, in this aquarium with all this light and open space in the front, that's where they like to be, so go figure. I also have a group of Bexford pencil fish in here, and they're excellent camouflage artists. They will come out more often than in the other tetras. It's a cherison. There's one there in the center, see it? The least quote unquote beautiful of the pencil fish, but they're inexpensive and they're quite hardy. And when they're flaring or in their best dress, you will get reds, you will get coppers. There's a fat female right there. There's a good shot of the Bexford pencil fish. A bovine looking female, and that other one doesn't look too slim either. So there's quite a bit of fish in here, even if you don't see them all in the time it's taken to make this video. There's got to be at least 50 fish in here. And yet you wouldn't know it from looking. But, you know, it would be in a perfect world, you'd see all these fish when I'm making the video. But because I'm so happy with the plants, I have no misgivings or apologies. Let me add that I've got this, I keep pointing this out, but on Etsy or eBay, I bought these little moss holders, and they do a fantastic job. I just put some Christmas moss. You still see the thread because I pulled a bunch. I've thinned it, but it's a great way to grow super healthy mosses, different kinds of mosses, without having to use your actual aquascape to do it. That one there is barren because I pulled 80% of it off, but with this light and CO2 it'll look like this in no time, and when it looks like this one will be like a small tennis ball, and I'll have to pull a bunch of chunks of it out. I'll show you what I do with it just because it's convenient. This is some of it right there. That is a big cup full of absolutely algae-free, perfect Christmas moss. If you're in the Chicago area, by the way, these are Bacopa cuttings. Just for fun, right? I got a little vase going here. I don't think it's worth making a whole video, but there's a little trailer tease for that. If you have any questions or comments or want to know more about this aquarium or anything else, by all means hit me up. I love hearing from you. I really, really do. It's so much fun interacting. As always, folks, keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.